Okay, so we've got the interior there coming together, and I've just done some test renders to see what it'll look like with some lights, and I want to get that into Photoshop and put some furniture in there. But first I want to put in the rest of the built-in furniture. So very, very quickly, I'll put in the fireplace. So this may not be perfect, but it will give you enough to make it if you check the photos and see how the real thing looks. Because I can only see part of it in the photos anyway. I can see here we've got the edge of it there and the chimney. Oh, there's a bit more. That'll be enough. Okay, so going to, again, on the architecture tab, component, model in place. And the category here doesn't matter too much. I think I'm just going to use generic models. And I'm going to call this fireplace. And I'll put in an extrusion. I'm going to just draw a rectangle up against the wall there by eye. Maybe I'll check the, since we've got it there, I'll check the plan. And I missed it completely, so let's get that a bit better. Now, here it's shown with this funny shape. I don't think it is that in real life. So, let's have a look. Yeah, I think it's wrong. The plan's wrong. So let's make it right. So it is at a bit of an angle, but it's not as rough and organic as they're trying to show it in this plan. So here I'm just dragging the lines there. Maybe there is a little plinth here. We'll do that too. That's okay. On the architecture tab, if you click on the arrow next to component, or under component. So I'll set the extrusion end here to, let's say, 1500 at a guess. Tick to finish, and I'm going to have a look at that now in my 3D view. So you can see my shape there. Let's have a look at the photo. And, oh, of course they've got vertical panels on this side of the wall. So I was going to use those to count how high it is, but, oh, here we go. We can measure it against that. So let's go into the other 3D view. Yeah, I think that'll do for now. So that's close enough. Can always adjust it later. So I'm going to go back to my ground floor plan and do another solid now. So back to create, extrusion. This time down to the curtain wall. So this is like a seat or some sort of bench. And this time the height will only be about 500. Tick to finish. Back into 3D. And I can't see the unit because it's outside my section box there, but I've got another one here where I will see it. I see it. Okay, so that's good enough for now for the bottom part. So I just want to put in the alcove for the for the actual fireplace. So now I'm going to go back on the Create tab to Void Forms and Void Extrusion. And I'll just use a rectangle to draw very roughly where that should be, and I might just fine tune that a little bit. Okay, so that looks good enough to me. And I'll check the height over there, so fireplace maybe would be about 800 high. Tick to finish, and this now will cut away that shape. And I'll see that when I've deselected it, you can see it's made the opening there. Now, so that I don't have to model anything on the ground, I might select that void and bring it up from the ground a little bit, maybe just 100 mil, so that it's got a base. That's good enough for now. And then I will I'll create a chimney, maybe in the entry floor plan, just to make it a bit higher than the other things. I'm going to go back into another extrusion now, just again with a rectangle, and yep, again just by eye, something like that will do. Tick to finish, back into my 3D view, and so the bottom of it isn't on top of my fireplace, so I'm going to drag that arrow there so that it snaps to the top, and I'll drag the top up and I'll adjust that height once I have a look at it properly in the section, but that's pretty close. So I've got all the elements I want from my fireplace. Now I just need to set the materials, and this is really what I wanted to show you. So when you make something using model in place, you need to select the solids, not the whole family. So you've got to go into the family and then select each part. So I'm going to select this one and then hold down Control and select the part next to it, and then it's in Properties over here you set the material. So with the walls and floors you go to Edit Type, but with these things you just need to look in Properties, find that material section where it says by category, click there and go to Browse. Now remember, we made that sandstone material right at the beginning, so it should be here in the list. If I can remember what it's called, it is here somewhere. I think it was masonry sandstone, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh, here we go. It just doesn't have the image there, but it is there, and that's updated it. Okay, so I'm just going to use that material. I'm not going to make another one. And so remember, if you want to change the angle of those blocks, you can go and make a new material and use the paint tool to change those. But I'm going to leave it like that for now, and then just show you that the chimney can easily be a different material by just selecting it. Now I can go and choose the material I'm using for all of the plain white surfaces, and that's this finish material, which you should have there in your list. So it's just a plain white material. That's done. So finish model, and that now is all one thing. So I'll just remind you, when I select it now, I can't choose a material. I need to go to Edit and Place and then select each part to find the material. Okay, so I'll let you have a go at working out the wall under the stairs there. I might do a bit on that next week when we go further with lighting. But I want to show you some quick things for lighting now, just so you can get something into Photoshop. And so I've actually been playing with the lighting, and I've put some in here. I'm going to just delete all of those and show you how to put them in again. Alright, so just to get a quick basic setup for your lights so that you can render it and get it into Photoshop, I'm going to use the studio light. So on the Architecture tab, it's going to go to Component, in my ground floor plan, load family, and then you don't need to go to the special library. Just in any library you'll find lighting, architectural, internal, and you'll find the studio light. So this is just a floating light you can place anywhere, and it's really good just to get the rendering to work. So you can see it's got studio light, and I'm just going to place two of them in this dining room. Now it'll give me a warning telling me they're not visible. That is fine, so I'm going to click another point down here, and again I can't see it here, but you'll see, I'll show them to you in a minute. And I'm going to put 4 into this area. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so to see them, I'm going to go to the ground floor ceiling plan, and there they are. So I might just fine tune the position a little bit just by selecting them. I'm going to use the down arrow just to get them slightly better. Okay, and so now I want to change the height. So I'm going to select all of them by selecting one. I can right click and go to Select All Instances in Entire Project. And I'm going to go to my section view, section 1. I'm going to bring these down closer to the floor. So I've selected all the lights, and I can use the down arrow on the keyboard just to nudge them down a bit closer to just be above that entry level is what I'm going for. And now I'm going to use the copy button and copy all of them up to just above level 1. Maybe just a little bit higher, something like that, just a bit below the top of that balustrade. So that should fill in the space fairly well with light. Okay, and then I've made a perspective view. Now my light there, unfortunately, well, we'll see. That might be in the way, but we'll have a look. So I'm going to go and just start rendering now. So I've got my camera view set up, and you need that to do rendering generally. And now back to the view control bar down the bottom. You've got the teapot there. I'll set it onto draft, just to do it quickly, and then I'm going to put the lighting scheme there to interior artificial only, and just click render. That's a good quick way of starting with interior rendering, because the sunlight can be a bit more difficult to control, and with this space it's going to be difficult to get any decent sunlight. Okay, so that's working, and now the only problem is it's a little bit dark, so I'm going to click on adjust exposure, take this slider just slightly to the right, or to the left I mean, sorry, slightly to the left, click apply, and that will brighten it all up. Maybe a little bit too bright, that's a little bit too dark. It's very sensitive, but as you adjust it you can click apply to see the result. So that's good enough. I might see if I can get it done on medium. In the time we've got, yep, we should just have enough time. What? Oh, just the component. Yep. Oh no, actually we didn't get some furniture, so I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to just bring the view out a little bit. So notice here it's gone black because I cancelled the rendering, so I can click show the model to see the view again. Sort of drag this down just to get a bit more floor space to work with, and I'm also going to use the navigation wheel over here to pan and get that again just to show a bit more of that space. Okay, so I'm going to render that. And then, while that's happening, I'll get Photoshop working. So I've got Photoshop open, and that's really useful when you're working with rendering. You usually just want to have Photoshop open, ready to go. And this shouldn't take too long on medium, so don't worry about the black image that comes up when it's doing the first 50%. It'll always show you that on the first 50, and then once it gets past 50% you'll see the what are they called, the buckets. So those squares that go over the image are called buckets. Okay, so nearly done. Once it gets past the first 50, it'll be much quicker as well, usually for the second 50. And remember, you can set this up before your project's finished. And so you might be thinking, well, I want to make the stair look a bit more like the real stair, and put in the extra detail under there, and you know, do some other things. But you don't need to have all of that done before you bring it into Photoshop. You can set this up in Photoshop, and then as you make improvements in Revit, you can easily just import those changes and still keep all of the work you've done in Photoshop. So same as probably what you already were doing with Revit. You can set your plans up and have the other views ready to go well before you finish your design. So that's close enough. I would probably, do a lot more, but it's close enough for now. So in the rendering dialog box, this is probably the most important thing. When you go into Photoshop, you need to use Export, and then choose where the file's going to go. Give it a name, and the format I would recommend is PNG, Portable Network Graphics. And now in Photoshop I can open that file. So that should be it. Okay, so notice how we've got these checkerboard parts showing through. That means they're transparent. So the backgrounds are automatically cut out for you, which is really useful, so you don't have to do that yourself. So what I'm going to mostly show you is how to do layers. I know we're nearly out of time, but we should have enough time. So I'm just going to maximise that so I can see everything. Okay, so a good technique in Photoshop is to duplicate your background layer. So I'm going to do that just by dragging my layer swatch onto the new button. That'll make a copy of it. Now if you don't see a layers panel, go to Window and then you can tick layers there. Now I can turn off layer 0 on my background and know that it's there if I need to go back to it. So I can make changes then to this copy. So I'm going to go to Open now on the menu and find a background to stick in there. So I'm going to go to the P drive, Interior Design, Material Images, and then I've got a few here. Skies, I've got a few, but then I know I've got a few more in another place. This one's okay. It might be a little bit too bright. Maybe this one. So it's just opening. There we go. So I'm going to go to, do a quick way, Control A, Control C, to select all and then copy it. And now I'm going to click onto layer 0, which is my background, and then Control V, which will paste above that. So there's my sky. Now Control T, and I can stretch it so that it goes across that area. You can also move it up and down. Okay, so that's how easy to put backgrounds in. Now if I go to Image and then Adjustments and then Brightness Contrast, it'll only affect the background. So it's nice to have a bit of contrast between the interior and the background so people know it's a background. So then, to get some things in the foreground, I'll go and open some images of some furniture, and let's see what we've got here. So let's have to go to thumbnails. Oh, in fact, rather than getting something from there, you'll know, is there any furniture you're thinking about using that you know the name of? Yeah? From who? How do you spell it? Oh yeah, so the sofa from, what's the Cult, right, yeah. So double. Oh right, okay. Oh, DEE. God, okay, all right. Designers, why do we do it? So here we go. Oh, right, okay. This one? Okay, so let's see if there is one that's at a good angle. This one might just work. So I'll try that. Otherwise, I mean, it's pretty close to a 1 point perspective. So I could put it off to the side or use one of these. Might be difficult with that angle. Is this, so, well, that's the same one, it's just wide, isn't it? Yeah, that might work better. So, okay, so I'll just get that one. So, save picture as, when you've gotten to the image in your browser, and I'll save this into the material images. And actually, I don't think we've got a furniture folder, so I'll make one. Oh, geez, thanks. Okay, so back into Photoshop, can open that. I kind of see, there he is. Alright, so quick way of cutting something out is just to use the polygonal lasso and go in and I'm just going to cut it out very roughly, and then I'll show you how to improve it once you've got it in there. So very roughly, just going around it, making sure I get more than I need, because I can always refine this later on. Okay, so the leg there is missing, but I can show you some tricks later to bring that back as well if you want to. You might, no, you can't bring the footrest in, unfortunately, so because it's not all there. So I've got to go around that. That's okay. Okay, so just making sure I get everything. So the legs especially. Oh yeah, if you've got a Revit file, definitely, yeah. That's always going to work. Okay, so I've got that. Control C to copy, and then I'm going to go to the highest layer there, and then Control V to paste it on top. Control T to transform it, and I can stretch the size of it there. There we are. Move it. So we might not get the whole thing in there, but definitely can get part of it. And just got to see how the perspective works. The perspective doesn't need to be perfect, but you know, try and get it as good as you can. Okay, so a good option here might be to put in something that is just the same shape in plan. So just a very rough outline that you could do with an extrusion that goes straight up. And stick it in the perspective view just to line this up a little bit better. But that would do as a starting point, just getting it like this. And then there are perspective warping tools, so if you go to the under edit, the transform options here, you've got the perspective tool there if you want to try and change the perspective. But that can be problematic. Doesn't always do what you might want it to. And you can only go so far. At the end of the day, it is a 2D image that was done at a certain perspective. But that's basically the technique. So I'll show you later how you can do shadows and things like that as well to tie it in with the background a bit more. But then to refine it, okay, so you've got here the legs. And so there are different ways. You can use masking, which is what I'd normally do here to take that away. But just to do it very quickly, you can use the eraser tool and then just delete the parts you don't want. To make the brush bigger and smaller, use the square either use the square brackets on the keyboard, or you can right click and just change the size that way. Something like this, you'd want the hardness on 100%, so it does a hard edge. And then you can just go in and gradually just refine that edge. And if you zoom right in, it makes it a lot easier. Right, so you just go around the whole thing like that and just keep cutting back. Right, so it takes time, but at the end of the day, you're always working with pixels in Photoshop, so you just develop those techniques for working with those as you go through. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect. You can see there, that's still a bit rough, but zooming out, it's good enough. Okay, so that's it. And like I said, we'll do more on shadows and reflections and things like that, but that should at least get you started. You can start putting your pieces in there. Sure. And as you improve the stuff you've done with Revit, remember you can just replace the layers instead of doing all of this work again. You can keep the furniture and things you've put on top, and then just stick the layers in underneath that have the new rendering. So you don't need to have everything done perfectly in Revit to start doing this.